If there ever was an offseason for Mick Cronin to shift his high school recruiting narrative, this is the offseason. Mick Cronin must get one of these top commits in the class of 2026.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. Welcome back, everydayers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Go check it out. And we're going to get started today. UCLA, all sorts of recruiting going on right now. We've done so much talk about the UCLA football team, but now we're shifting to the summer recruiting months of sorts for the UCLA basketball team, where offers are starting to go out left and right. We'll talk a little bit about the importance of the UCLA football schedule in certain pieces, and what are some other interesting recruiting tidbits and other transfer portal news about UCLA. So for Mick Cronin, a weird couple of seasons with recruiting. I've detailed this and talked about it before in the Locked On UCLA podcast, and let's go back and kind of think about it. The class of 2023 is now basically all gone besides Brandon Williams, all right? That was exclusive prep recruiting, domestic high school recruiting, international recruiting. And Cronin, with his international recruiting staff, although Ivo Simovic then went to the NBA, that really took a downswing. You see what UCLA tried to implement with their high school recruiting, and it didn't all pan out, all right? So Mick Cronin went and complained about the NIL. The Bruins turned into a super transfer-heavy roster. We thought that maybe one of those guys, Adimara, would pan out, and he started to showcase some signs of talent on the court and potential heading into his junior season. But the transfer portal, NIL, and just the lack of playing time from Mick Cronin truly put that out the window. Then you mix in this last season where, okay, you got a high school recruit. Eric Freeney was the headliner, had to redshirt. You bring in the likes of, where's everybody else going? Okay, let's see about, Trent Perry. That was a late get, but he saw limited action. So there hasn't been this truly big-time freshman recruit that's played since the combination of Amari Bailey and a Dembona. What does that pair with? A UCLA conference championship where they also were one of the best teams in the country and could have gone on a run. So if you can mix in some veterans with some freshman talent, UCLA won a Freshman of the Year award that year at the Dembona, then UCLA could be cooking with something. So the Bruins have started to go out in a very stacked class of 2026 and put out some offers, all right? Just the other day, they had Anthony Felici from Hurricane, Utah, given an offer from UCLA. He announced that he's a 4-star. He's a small forward, 6'5", 180 pounds, third best player in the state of Utah, according to 24/7 Sports. And even the other day, on a long list of recruiting, all right, I think it was Sam Kaiser who put out the list. UCLA was at a recruiting event, a hoops event, one of those, travel ball, hoops leagues, right? You see all these big-time summer ball leagues with these kids and the prep levels at the amateur levels. Jason Crowe Jr., this is a guy in UCLA's own backyard, a 5-star point guard who is second at best at his position, one of the top 5 best players in the country. And also, if you think about it, it's the state of California, he's one of the top 5 best players in the state of California as well. You got Brandon McCoy, another 5-star point guard who the Bruins have offered in the class of 2026. He's from St. John Bosco. So between Crowe Jr., between McCoy, if UCLA could land one of these guys, you're like, wait a minute, who is UCLA pinning all their hopes on this year? Donovan Dent. And hopefully some growth from Trent Perry. Now, if you land a McCoy, you land a Crowe Jr., or you go out and get a small forward where UCLA might be lacking. I know Daly Jr. still got another year, but you can't count on every single one of these guys to continue their career to their senior year with UCLA. You've got to build some depth with the youngsters, all right? Can UCLA go land a big man? I'm not sure Cronin's going to land anybody 6'10" or taller for a while, considering he likes the undersized big men who are athletic and shifty and rangy defensively. And that's where like a Dembona comes in. He can move side to side, get vertical. And the Bruins saw him blossom through his 2 years at UCLA and go to the NBA. But then when you got the 7'3" unicorn of Daimara, it didn't really work out. So the Bruins are probably going to focus a lot more on point guards in the backcourt under the Mick Cronin system, and you got to land one of these guys. I'm not sure, obviously, who would be one of those big names that could burst onto the scene from a sophomore to a junior that UCLA could go shell out more NIL money next offseason. Of course, that's where the offseason training guys who take growth and big strides from sophomore to junior year, you never know who's going to be that guy next year. But Donovan Dent seemed like a match made in Mick Cronin's recruiting heaven, right? Oh, this is a guy that's from SoCal, was very under-recruited by the Bruins, so much so that I was like, oh, wait, you have to throw him $3 million according to NIL offers to bring Dent over, where that chunk of change is going to be so much less if you try to offer theoretically, to one of these incoming freshmen, although some of these guys are commanding big deals or asking for big things, not necessarily the McCoys or the Crowe Juniors of the world, but that's just how it is in today's recruiting until they figure out a way to limit the spending on the high school athletes, on the transfer portal athletes. So the Bruins are out there and making offers happen, all right? So the recruiting is happening, and Mick Cronin's got to land one of these guys. If he doesn't, this would be the second straight recruiting cycle that UCLA has not gotten a high school kid. All right. And maybe you can understand Cronin's like, I'm going to shift away from the high school recruiting for a season. The class of 2026 is absolutely stacked. So there should be no reason that on a list of 8 to 10 guys that UCLA's offered, all within the 4 to 5 star range, Mick Cronin can't land one of these guys. Now, you can't bank on them staying more than 1 year. You can't get every single McDonald's All-American or be like, wait a minute, Trent Perry's just going to fall into our lap every single season or every single offseason, like it did after he decommitted from USC and went to UCLA. This is the chance for Mick Cronin to prove it. Because as much as you see the older guys staying, as much as we wonder if the NCAA is going to expand eligibility to 4 to 5 years and how all these teams are showcasing super talented veteran guys who have been around college basketball 2 to 3 years, who are 22, 23, or in some cases, maybe 25 going on 26. I think we'll at some point maybe shift away from that era. But you see some of the best teams, they've got in the NBA good rookie players. You got very good youngsters. In college basketball, you have to lean once in a blue moon on a very talented freshman. And who was the best player in college basketball and going number one? That was Cooper Flagg. Now, I'm not saying UCLA is going to land the Cooper Flagg of the class, but if you get somebody well within that talent range, UCLA will be so much better heading into 26 to 27. Not sure if it's one of these guys in their own backyard, or if they're going to go get the kid from Utah, but this is an important cycle for Mick Cronin to prove to the fans it's not all about transfer recruiting. You have to get the top high school kids once in a while or twice, and even if they're bust, saying, hey, we can compete, we gave you a chance, and if Mick Cronin has the best recruiting team out there and he gets the guys he likes based on defensive intangibles, personality, fit with his coaching style, then the Bruins will be better off for it. But they have to go get somebody and not just rely on them redshirting a year in or year out, all right? We're not doing the Mark Few model. Mick Cronin's got to go get somebody big time now. Next, we're going to talk about the UCLA football team. And what does it mean? How important is that early UNLV game? It's after the Utah game, of course, but what makes that UNLV game especially challenging or a big key for UCLA's win-loss total in 2025? We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. Every night delivers the highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, can't miss moments. They're heading into the conference finals now. And whether it's the next game-winning shot, who's going to break out this level of playoffs, there's never been a better time than now to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. So who's going to show up in the big moments? Well, tracking what Jalen Brunson's going to do in the late moments in the fourth quarter, is that going to lead the Knicks to the NBA Finals? Or maybe it's SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is the guy who might be the favorite to be a big-time MVP winner this season. Is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is he going to put up some more fourth quarter performances? How many free throws is he going to get? Go check it out and maybe combine those live prop bets mid-game and make it a big-time same-game parlay, a $200 bonus in bonus bets. That adds to the excitement if your $5 bet hits. Now, New to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Cruising on into the second segment, UCLA, they have a fascinating schedule, a fascinating thing of what is this UCLA team going to be in 2025? Well, I'm starting to jump on the hype train, and let's get chugging along into the summer months. Obviously, still very much spring here in late May in 2025, as much as that sounds, as crazy as that sounds. Pretty much all done with the inaugural year of Big Ten play, from football all the way to the spring sports. We're all heading into postseason play outside of a baseball Big Ten tournament. No more official Big Ten events until UCLA heads into year 2 of this Big Ten era. A lot of, debt to do. There's a lot of things UCLA can improve, but Deshaun Foster is doing his own thing in bringing in the top players available, enhancing the high school recruiting efforts, and trying to drive interest, revenue, fans to the Rose Bowl, fans to watch it on their TV screens, recruits to stay in Southern California and go to UCLA. It's been a monumental effort, and they're hoping that they can get the buy-in from the chancellor, Julio Frank, who came in from Miami and led big-time fundraising efforts down there. He's trying to do the same thing at a public UC school at this stage of his leadership career, trying to pair with Deshaun Foster and make this a winning university at football. And how do you do that? Well, Deshaun Foster is going to need to have a big-time second year. First year can be chalked up to, okay, those were impossible circumstances, incredibly crazy travel that most coaches just don't have to deal with in a new conference, new landscape, new opponents, with a brutal schedule in the first half of Deshaun Foster's coaching career, let's be honest. This year, a lot more manageable of a season where I'm fairly confident that Utah game is very winnable at home to start the year. They can easily lose it. They could look bad. But at home in late August, that's a game that's winnable for UCLA. But then it's where the UNLV, New Mexico Northwestern stretch comes in. This is the difference between UCLA and that UNLV game, where Dan Mullen takes over a program that UNLV was very competitive. They went from the conference doormat to all of a sudden they were competing for conference championships in the Mountain West left and right before their coach left to go to Purdue. But Dan Mullen's still a big-time hire, absolutely big-time hire. And, of course, they got a nice stadium they play in. They share it with the Raiders. They have their own locker room, and they have a bunch of nice facilities that they get to share with the NFL team that they're trying to build up into a strong Mountain West program, maybe future Pac-12 program. That's just not the case right now. And UNLV with Dan Mullen, that's a sneaky tough matchup. First road game of the year. It's very close, easy to travel to if you're a UCLA fan. Not exactly going to be a raucous atmosphere or one that's going to put fears into the eyes of the Bruins, especially those who were there last year staring down hundreds of thousands of fans in Penn State, or hundreds of thousands of fans at LSU, or the overwhelming heat that was the season opening game at Hawaii on the islands, where it was just blistering in a midday game over there. Not the exact same thing. We're going to be playing in an air-conditioned stadium where they're going to be screaming right down with UCLA playing there. So the Bruins, that UNLV game could be the difference between UCLA starting 3-1, 4-0, or 2-2. And 2-2, that's going to be a lot tougher for UCLA to make a bowl game. All right. Their win total, according to FanDuel, is about 5.5. That's grown with all the transfers the Bruins brought in the spring portal, with the commitment, obviously, of Nico Iamaleava. Trying to, what has UCLA done? A lot of changes on the coaching staff, a lot of enhancements on the roster, including the former 5-star quarterback at the quarterback position. But you have to beat UNLV. And obviously, it's a little too early to get into the weeds. But if you're trusting that Dan Mullen knows how to coach, he can take a program that's been doing really well lately. And if he can bring in all those transfers like he's done and turn that team into a winner, or at least a sneaky tough matchup in week 1, week 2. Think about this last year. Notre Dame lost at home early to Northern Illinois. And in my opinion, that should have kept Notre Dame out of the playoff. And yet they find themselves in the national championship game losing to Ohio State. So these early games against these group of 5, group of 6 teams, they're very tough. And UCLA on the road in Vegas, it's not the most daunting of atmospheres at Allegiant Stadium, but it should not be overlooked. In my mind, I'll be very honest with you. If I'm putting in a win-loss total, I'm banking on this as a win. I am. But there still shouldn't be a look past effect. And they win against Utah. That's prime for a UCLA letdown. If you're any type of UCLA fan, you're like, man, they beat Utah. They're going to let down versus UNLV. That's the immediate reaction. Say the Bruins beat the Utes. Like, oh, let's not lose to UNLV. And there we go. The Bruins have to win this game. And if you start 3-1, even with a loss to Utah, that's still well on their way to a potential bowl season because you got Maryland at home. You've got a Washington game at home. You've got very manageable Big Ten games and spots if you can rise to the occasion. But it's a little tougher to do so when you're 2-2. And that's where that UNLV game, obviously the Utah game will be a big Kickstarter effect for the Bruins. You win that game, the Bruins could easily be 4-0 heading into October with Penn State coming to town. And dare I say a fun college game day atmosphere or whatever it might be. The Bruins have to get the job done against UNLV. We can talk about when we get more into depth and matchups and players are in their official spots heading into fall camp, into summer camp. But for now, that's where UCLA needs a key win against UNLV in early September of 2025. Next, we're going to talk about a little more recruiting news and notes and some funny, odd notes about what the recruiting landscape has brought us nowadays here on Locked On UCLA. All right, final segment of the Locked On UCLA podcast. We're getting into the fun part of Locked On UCLA. More recruiting news and notes, basketball, football, and what does this transfer portal age mean in this weird day of sports? So we'll talk about that at the end. For now, one of the latest transfers to this incoming class for Deshaun Foster, the Bruins bringing in Jalen Saint Paul from Oregon. Very rarely, he didn't even get a game. I don't think he got a snap at Oregon. Carlsbad native, and again, hammering down this point, Deshaun Foster has made it clear. We're bringing these kids home, even if it's from Eugene, even if it's from just across, a couple of state lines to get up to Washington, or if they're just a little further east to the Arizonas, or if they're all the way in the South, in the Midwest, in the East, Northeast, UCLA, they're bringing these kids home. So a Carlsbad native who redshirted at Oregon last season announced in the last day on his social media, May 19th, that he is heading to UCLA and transferring, all right? Just another of the Oregon transfers going to UCLA. Obviously, Oregon's potential starting quarterback, Dante Moore, the UCLA to Oregon connection there. But again, now we start to see guys who aren't cutting it at Oregon, they get this big opportunity, don't play a lot. They're coming back to SoCal. They're coming to UCLA to get an opportunity. I'm not sure if St. Paul is immediately going to play. There's not a lot on him at this moment. Yet, this is another one of those transfers to Deshaun Foster, SoCal kid, bring him home. He's coming to the Bruins in the transfer portal. Now, while we wait for some of the UCLA receivers to get healthy, while we wait for some of the guys to figure out who's the number one guy, who's the two guy, who are the top two on the depth chart, St. Paul comes in and gets an opportunity at UCLA to catch passes from Nico Iamaleava and whoever the future starting quarterback will be in 2026 and beyond. Speaking of more recruiting news and notes, the Bruins, while they have also gotten out and put out some 2026 offers, we're shifting to Mick Cronin and the men's basketball team. They've put out their 2026 offers. Anderson Diaz, all right, has gotten an offer. That's a 2027 four-star point guard, 6 foot out of New York. So the Bruins, who have already landed a New York kid in Brandon Williams a couple of years ago, this will be his third year at the program, second year of playing. They're looking at guys at the point guard position years from now. So does an offer mean for a 2027 kid that they're not in on Jason Crowe or Brandon McCoy? No, that doesn't mean that. But the Bruins are now looking 1 to 2 years ahead. This is how it goes. All right, we're going to look at this guy, see, is he going to project to be a 5-star? Is he available? Does he fit our motto? Are we going to shift one of these guys to the 1, to the 2? Cronin already putting out, making some feelers for 2026. And Anderson Diaz, the latest of a future recruiting class in the class of 2027, has gotten a UCLA offer. The Bruins so far have offered 6 guys in the class of 2027. So this is the big period where the Bruins are going out, recruiting, going to all these events, whether it's the big West Coast high school recruiting tournament, if you will, where you see some of these prep schools put teams together and they play, I think in the Arizonas of the world, or they go and they watch these AAU tournaments, which I know Cronin does not like. That's where you'll see the Darren Savinos of the world. The assistant coaches go out and help Cronin put together a roster and a team that can compete in the years to come. Okay. And now to wrap things up here in Locked On UCLA, another funny story you get with Locked On UCLA, or maybe just in UCLA in general. What's the funny thing you can see in the transfer portal day and age, right? You can see guys, are you playing for two schools? What exactly does that mean? Well, recently there's the Big Ten track and field championships. You're like, okay, what does that mean? And Oregon won them. The Oregon men's team won it. And you're like, okay, Zach, we don't care about Oregon. They won a lot of conference track championships. What does that mean at the Big Ten outdoor championships? Well, if you remember, one of the big recruits UCLA got in this offseason, Roderick Pleasant, is going to be a huge addition to UCLA's football team and track team in the years to come, right? It's not like he's only going to play one. He's going to be involved in both sports, one of the fastest kids at the 100, and he's very early in his career. Well, Oregon had 110 points to win the Big Ten outdoor championships. They won both the indoor and outdoor Big Ten conference championships. What's funny is you have Roderick Pleasant, who, yes, he's committed to go to UCLA. He's on his way to get there, but he's still competing for the Oregon track team. That's got to be such a weird thing when you're competing with your former school / current school while transferring to another school in conference within regional bounds, and he's going to try and lead UCLA to new heights in their Big Ten track championships. All right. So Roderick Pleasant, who was a part of the 100-meter dash, came in sixth, got his team a couple of points, and also was a part of the 4x1 relay. And they didn't place that well, but I believe he's the anchor, if I'm not mistaken. So he was a part of a team that led Oregon to dominate the Big Ten track championship. So it's not like it was a one-man team, but it is funny that he's a part of a team that won the team event at the Big Ten track championships. Let me tell you the scores. Oregon with 110 points in all their events. Minnesota and Wisconsin, 81 points tied for second. USC in fourth with 78. And Nebraska in last with 76. UCLA on the women's side did come in third in their Big Ten track debut for the outdoor championships. But it's Roderick Pleasant, who is currently ready to go to UCLA to compete in their future track championships, going to UCLA to compete for a football spot, returning spot, a DB spot, where he didn't get too much time in Oregon, another one of those Oregon to UCLA connections. But it's funny. Hey, I'm going to compete with you guys, be a big key for your relay team, big key for your 100-meter run. But man, it's kind of funny where he's committed to UCLA, he's already in the transfer portal, and he's winning a conference track championship with Oregon. And obviously, I'm not too up to speed with how track works and the championships at the NCAA level, the team level. But it's funny that however far Oregon goes, Pleasant's competing. It's just weird that, hey, I'm in the portal, I'm going somewhere else, but I'm still competing with your school in a different sport. That's just got to be a funky mindset that you don't get in any other sports except now college sports with the transfer portal. And this is a unique situation since Pleasant is a two-sport athlete, and I think the track team probably understands. Maybe it's a little more football motivated, I would think, is transfer. That's my take, but it is a funny situation. So congrats to Pleasant. I know it's not of the UCLA variety, but he won a Big Ten conference championship with his Oregon team, and hopefully he can accomplish similar heights with UCLA in the future, all right, and transform their relay team, add some speed to the football team, which he absolutely is going to do, and be a big-time contributor on defense in years to come for Deshaun Foster and company. And with that, that's going to wrap things up for Locked On UCLA. We'll talk more basketball, more football, preview the Supers, talk about UCLA baseball's Big Ten tournament run, and all that and more here in Locked On UCLA. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.